they need to have a lot of technical expertise or business expertise. If they address the industries, they need to have business expertise. If they address the products or technology platforms, they need to have technical expertise, and they need to have domain expertise, of course, from the industry point of view, and also need to have psychological expertise as well, because we need to understand the consumers' learning behaviors and needs, and accordingly we need to structure the content. So organizations believe that there is a lot of investment here because a special expertise is needed for the people who handle this knowledge management functions. And then unfortunately in India we don't have the formal education in this technical communication side. One or two universities in India have this education, but it's not very prominent in India. But of course in other countries there are institutes which offer formal education. So this is also another challenge. So that means organizations will have to kind of educate people, so they can't really get the resources who are ready-made, right? They have to invest the time into that, and it demands a lot of effort investment from the intellectuals, because as all of you can understand, we extract knowledge from all these individuals, right? So plenty of architects are involved, plenty of product owners are involved, and decision makers, and so it's not just the development groups, R&D groups that we interact with, but we interact with the whole set of people. Sometimes even pre-sales and sales and field and different kinds of people we do interact to extract the insights. So there's a lot of investment of time that is coming from the intellectuals as well. And the another big challenge is we also need to align this content along with the product deliveries. So we never deliver knowledge separately. So knowledge always goes with the R&D products that we develop. So, and they have a different kind of a schedule, and we need to align with that schedule.
Cafe, I didn't really know what to expect over here. But it's really gratifying to see on a afternoon so many of you over here, assembled for hearing different perspectives on different topics in the knowledge management. So just as a, just to continue myself, so how many of you have your primary job in KM? Can you raise your hands? Okay, so it's almost a 50-50 kind of a split. Okay, that's interesting. So I guess when I talk of this particular topic, role of leadership in making KM successful, this is about the other side of the table. So those who are having their primary job in KM are the ones who have to get the buy-in from leadership, which is across business and all that. So when I was listening to Ravi, for me actually he lay on the other side of the table in a way. That he's actually running a group called Technical Writing, and in a way if there is a KM program within SAP which looks at the functional aspects of KM and all, he could probably be one of the customers and stakeholders over there. So Ravi, when you listen to me,
sure, try
to put yourself on the other side of the table. Okay, this is a typical KM rollout cycle in any organization. So a very crude depiction of it. So there's a strategy, right? In an organization, there's this gung-ho thing about KM, so let's have a strategy. As part of the strategy, you identify some initiatives, right? Then someone creates awareness around them. Then you have some piloting done in different parts of the organization on those initiatives. Then you broad base it and go through the adoption cycle in a broader sense. And then you look at continuous improvements, right? I have not deliberately closed the loop, so you can sort of guess why I haven't, or we'll take it up later. So in this whole cycle, leadership plays a very crucial role at every stage. And this is what we are going to look at. So what I've tried to do is, I've tried to look at three distinct phases in this cycle. So there's the upstream phase, which is your strategy and identifying the initiatives. Then creating the awareness, piloting, adoption phase, which is about your, what I call it midstream. And then finally the continuous improvement phase that comes into picture. And let's see how leadership plays a role in making KM successful in organizations in terms of the engagement that they provide, the kind of sponsorship that they provide, etc. So when we talk of the upstream activities in terms of when a strategy formulation is happening and you're trying to set up KM within your organizations, and it needs to probably get revisited every few years in any organization. So first and foremost, the leadership must give KM its place in the organization structure. So one of the things that leadership plays a critical role in is, are they giving due importance to KM, right? If they are not, then something is missing. So the starting point itself is extremely crucial. So if I look at, I was in Wipro for 2 decades and then I moved over to CGI. How many of you know about CGI? Okay, so a minority of you. So CGI is an IT services and consulting company based out of Montreal in Canada. It has 70,000 employees based in 40 countries. It has revenues of something like $10.5 billion. So very much like pure play Indian IT companies in terms of the geographical spread, in terms of the services that are offered, in terms of the industry sectors that are served, right? So those of you who come from the IT sector, I know people from IGATE at least come from there, would be able to associate with the kind of knowledge requirements and KM requirements would be there in CGI. So over here, for example, if I look at CGI India, there is a KM council that got created. By the way, KM as a function started in CGI after I moved in because that was one of the charters. Right. So there's a KM council that has been created with the CEO of Asia Pac heading that. Right. I have a respected senior leader head KM. So especially when you are starting a KM journey or restarting it after a few years, trying to put new life into it, then make sure that there is somebody recognizable who's there at the top, so that people at least give some amount of seriousness to what the person has to say. Some of these are actually something that you may have heard it over and over again. I'm just trying to put it together in a single place as part of my session. The third thing that the leadership has to do is make sure that it is aligned with what they want. So when we talk of leadership, we are talking of the business heads, we are talking of the key stakeholders, the function heads, etc. We are here not talking of the KM team, the knowledge managers, right? So it's they who have to sign off on whether they feel that whatever KM is trying to do, is it going to benefit their business or not. Should not happen that a KM team tries to come up with its own strategy in isolation, identifies these are the 10 things I want to do. End of the year, it's in some review session or something, some presentation, a business head gets up and says, look, I don't associate with any of that, right? It would be too late. So get a sign off from them. And make sure that they agree to what you are trying to do is exactly what they also see they need. Buy-in from all the stakeholders, so that's what I was talking about. And yes, it needs to be funded. So when we talk of the role of leadership, ultimately there is an amount of investment that goes into it in terms of people, in terms of maybe technology, in terms of hosting the K-Cafes, etc. So they need to sign off on a budget as well. So I have seen in the past that there is a lot of lip service that happens where when you go to a business stakeholder, you decide in rolling out something which requires some amount of money. So for example, in IT companies, you may actually go to a group that wants to develop their skills on HANA Platform. And then you say that, look, we need to train 5 people, we need to set up a small lab. They say, no, I don't have the budgets for that, right? So all that needs to come from the leadership. They need to have that buy-in, they need to have those sign-offs in place in the upstream stages.
Yeah, one question.
Sure.
The first point which you said, give KM its place in the org structure. Okay.
Yeah.
Most of the organizations which I have seen or heard, KM is either a piece of quality or is a part of marketing team. Okay. Based on your experience, what is the best thing for KM? Should be a different entity, or should be a part of marketing or quality? Where it work fits in best, so that we can
see. It also depends on the DNA of the organization. So, for example, if there is a Hindustan Lever, right, which has 2 aspects to its business. One is the production aspect, so it has hundreds of products, the soaps and detergents and whatever other product lines they may have. And then there's the marketing part of it, right? You obviously have your finance and HR and other functions as well. So there, if KM is aligned with the more dominant function, it probably will be more successful, right? Now, if you look at an IT company, and here I'll take an example from Wipro. So in Wipro, the KM journey began sometime in 1999-2000, right? At that time, we, in Wipro, the whole idea was about consolidating all the knowledge that was lying all over the place, right? It was also the era when technologies were transitioning from legacy to client server to .coms were coming into picture. So web-based technologies were coming in. So a lot of excitement around and a lot of knowledge being created in isolated corners. So it was primarily technology oriented, and it was aligned under the CTO, right? But then once the technology platform had got established, then Wipro took a decision that probably it will be better aligned under quality, because quality is, by that time the ISOs and other things had started happening. The CMMs were in place, right? So quality is the function that had reached to maybe 95% of the organization. So it got aligned under quality. Now in terms of being an independent function, more often than not that doesn't happen. And that is primarily because of the span of control of the CEO, right? I am fortunate to be in a company, CGI, where one of the reportees of the CEO actually has a title of EVP for Corporate Performance and Knowledge Management. Now the rare companies where a person carries that as part of the title, right? So I think it just varies. I've seen companies where it's aligned under HR because it's more of a people-centric thing that they want to accomplish over there. Right? So I think each organization its own call. But you as knowledge managers can probably influence that decision indirectly if you have a reach to the leadership. Seed in some thoughts in. So which company do you work for?
I work for IGATE.
For IGATE, okay. So how is it aligned over here?
Part of quality, but I was working with TCS as part of marketing team.
Okay.
So I've seen both ways, how it works. Because whatever they create, it goes as a sales orator and marketing and all the way. We create that importance.
Okay.
So just wanted to see the two aspects.
So again, in terms of the org structure, so it's not necessary that everybody who's dedicated to KM should be part of a single group, right? So again, in Wipro, for example, when I was there were 32 people on the functional side of KM, and all were centralized. Versus the CGI, where the model is slightly different. Yes, there is a central KM team, but otherwise each business also has to identify people for KM, right? So in that sense, the embedding that happens within the business is far higher. So as long as it works, it's fine.
It also depends on this, the strategic role where the KM is aligned, right? So for example, if it is part of HR, then probably the organization does not understand the potential of KM, right? So it also depends on the business alignment, that is number 3 in the list. And also at the same time, it also depends on the kind of value which the business perceives that the KM should provide.
So for example, in CGI, since I was initiating KM in the KM Council, I have the CEO, I have one of the business heads, the Chief Productivity Officer, and the HR head, all as part of the council. Right, so that different perspectives can come in, and it's also an education when KM is starting new in an organization, right? So all the models, I think, in that sense, work.
One interesting observation from our side is that we were part of the product management for a long time. See, the whole idea is the product management is the team which is pushing product into the market. Okay, so that is where we get a lot of visibility, and it's important. We are the people, and we always used to assume that we are the first consumers of the product. We are when we produce the knowledge, but we are also there for. So sometimes I think it varies from company to company. At least in our case, it worked out very well.
But this KM Council route, I don't know whether you have the opportunity to try it in IGATE. You can actually try it out. It works much better than having KM as a separate function, maybe reporting into quality or HR. Because there you get a multi-dimensional view and a multi-dimensional buy-in, and all this funding and all becomes a breeze.
Yeah, actually, to add to that, for us at Society General, while we don't have a direct reporting, every quarter we report to the executive committee, EXCO as we call them.
Yeah.
And they look at what we are doing, and they actually bring in some of the things Ravi talked about, where the organization is going, the business perspective on how we align with the business. So they act as a sounding board. They also tell us that this could work because we are going in this direction in the next 3 months. So why don't we look at that? That actually helps.
So in fact, that brings a good point in terms of the role of leadership, what you are mentioning. When you talk of a strategy, it should never be done in isolation. Make sure that different stakeholders are involved in formulating that strategy. And it should always be driven by some of the prime drivers from the business environment, not from what you see internally as something that is lacking in KM. So you come to these forums, you hear something and you want to implement it at your end. But that's not the right approach, right? Let it be driven by a business need rather than a technology or something else. You can exchange notes amongst yourselves as well. It's a cafe, right? K-Cafe. It's not a conference. So it's not just me who has to do the talking. Please feel free. And where's the coffee by then? So let's move forward. So when we look at, so there's the strategy, there's the initiative, then you start creating awareness and some piloting and all that. So what's the role of leadership in that phase of any initiative that has been going on? So first and foremost, I think it is all about change management. More than knowledge management, we are all change managers when we wear the hats of knowledge managers, right? Because we are trying to change the behavior of people, we are trying to change the way people are used to working into something that we feel is slightly more optimal, right? So one of the key things that leadership can do at this stage is, so you roll out something new, say it could be a social media platform, it could be something about onboarding, for example. Somebody has to come and tell the teams within that why are we doing it? That's the part that gets missed out very often, because when we do communication from a PM angle, it's very about we are rolling out this initiative and this is the tool and these are your contact people and these are the things that we have created. Here's a body of knowledge around it. But the why part of it has to be done by leadership. If it is done by the knowledge management fraternity, it lacks that credibility. It's almost like, oh, it's your job, so you are saying that, right? So make the leaders say that why do we need it, right? It could be something as simple as, a new way of organizing your repositories, right? So why do we want to do that? What's wrong with the previous one, etc. So let the leaders talk about that. That makes a huge impact. So they need not talk about how to do it, but why do we need to change? As long as they do that job properly, and that is something that you may at times need to seed into leadership. At times, they may actually be so evolved that they will, as part of the strategy and initiative pull out, will understand that and talk about it. So if I take the example of CGI, last week there was a leadership retreat. It was an off-site kind of a thing. And there were two occasions where leaders actually talked about it without my prompting them. There was this group of business heads on a panel discussion, and there were some 200 people who were attending that retreat. So one of the topics they picked up was on KM. And they talked beautifully about why we need to do certain things, right? So that makes my job easier. Right? So after the panel discussion was over, a lot of people came to me and said, so how can we do it? Right? So the whole thing gets short-circuited. Likewise, the CEO talked about KM in the opening address. Right? In the slide, he had a component on KM, which was, by the way, not provided by me. So that was again good to see. Commitment of resources. So here what I mean is, it's not about the investment in knowledge managers and technology platforms. Very often you would have seen that you have good ideas, you take it to the teams, then people say we don't have the time to do it. Right? So when we talk of resources, we are talking of bandwidth of people. In case of, CGI is a multinational organization, so it was something alien to me. Wipro, it was very easy when I was in Wipro, where you could directly approach people and based on goodwill, based on their availability, bandwidth and a lot of other factors, they would do it or not. Here, for anything and everything, people ask for a project code. Right? So I don't know how many of you are working in multinationals, but this was an alien culture to me, that you want to sneeze and you need a project code. So we found that that was there. So that is where commitment of resources comes into picture. But when I look back, even in the case of Wipro probably, if we had forcefully asked for booking some time of, say, the subject matter experts, right, or some of the technical architects, probably it would have worked better. Because the moment they commit to some resourcing, for especially on the people side of things, and they communicate it, then your job becomes much easier in terms of getting their time for various expert sharing forums and other things, right? So that is an important role that they can play. And the moment somebody from the leadership sends out a message, that's taken far more seriously than a knowledge manager approaching the same person. Next is talk the talk. So here, this is about, the leaders should make the right sound bites in various forums. So it could be your open houses or all hands meets or whatever other internal forums are there. They need to talk about knowledge management amongst other things, right? So that there is a impression created in the audience, in the larger set of employees, that knowledge management is a priority area for the leaders. But they shouldn't stop at that. So it's not just about sermonizing. They have to practice what they preach, and that's the walk the talk part of it. So that is where again we find a lot of gap happening, where the leaders will come and say how important it is to capture your knowledge and share with others and learn from different project experiences, all that. But unless they are themselves seen doing that, their own credibility will fall when they talk about KM, right? So how do you help them walk the talk? This is where I think the proximity that you have to the leadership helps. This is where, it's again part of change management from our side in terms of handling the leaders. And this is where, especially for me, the KM Council is helped, where when a message goes out from the council, the leaders take it seriously, as opposed to going out from me as an individual, as a KM head, right? So you need to involve them in capturing their own knowledge. So again, remember, these leaders are the ones who know much more about the business environment because they are meeting far more customers, for example, and far more partners in the ecosystem than anybody else below the chain, right? So they need to capture it in some way, find out innovative ways in which they can do that, give them venues where they can do that. So you can't have a leader who talks about you should come and blog or you should respond to queries on some social media platform. And as for themselves, they would not even know how to log into it, right? So that doesn't work. They have to be seen doing something. Okay. So you can add to it. I mean, this is not an exhaustive list, just something that came to the top of my mind. So these are some of the things that we can justifiably expect the leaders to do.
Great.
Yep.
Not only what we see is, we also need to get a lot of support from other business leaders.
Yeah.
It's not just knowledge management, guys. We try to promote certain things.
Mm-hmm.
So over a period of time, what I have observed is when these people actually probably build awareness around it or walk these things or talk these things only when there is a strong need.
Yeah.
Okay, at least in our case, some kind of validation is there, and there are legal laws out there. So these definitely, kind of promote them, or insist them to really look into this and somehow promote these activities. But in other organizations where you don't have, say, probably legal laws or other challenges to reach out to the customers or whatever, what are the factors that really inspire and motivate them to do these things?
Okay.
We will be doing that.
So I think, I was reading a blog last week. I don't remember where, somewhere on LinkedIn somebody had liked something and I clicked on it. And so there he talked of, the same kind of an aspect that finally there has to be a trigger for a leader to act in a particular way. That trigger could be a customer, screaming on the other end of the phone, or some heavens falling due to something, whatever. So when there is a trigger, then the job is easy, right? If a customer comes in and says, there's a high attrition in this team, how are you managing your knowledge? How are you retaining knowledge? Then obviously, KM comes to the forefront. The second, what that blog says is about, inspiring leadership. So, for example, in CGI, there is one business leader who's very passionate about what's the latest happening in technology. So he came to me and said, can I take a session on design thinking? Some of you who have been following the media would have seen how Vishal Sikka is in Infosys is really creating a buzz around design thinking. So he took his entire top leadership team to Stanford University to hear from the gurus on design thinking. So this guy, even before Vishal Sikka had come in, had actually come to me and said, can I talk to some of the leaders? So what more do you want? So you organize a bunch of very senior people and say, this guy who is your peer is going to talk on design thinking. I think they'll say no, not to attend it. And then obviously there is some amount of discussion that happens. These are not like training kind of a thing, one-to-many kind of conversations, right? So the whole thing happens that way. So I think it has to come from within more than anything else. Otherwise, it's trigger-based. The other thing that we keep saying again and again is, if they see value in something, they will come into it willingly. So that's the job that actually has to be shared by them in terms of showcasing value, right? So for example, in technical writing, you just showed an example of how you said that it could become a delivery stream indirectly, right?
So when you say walk the talk from leaders,
Yeah.
how would the people at all levels of the organization actually see the leaders practicing KM? People at different levels of the organization get to hear from the leaders, they do the talk, and okay, KM is important,
Right.
maybe for so and so reasons and all that. But the leaders are not necessarily doing it, as in doing it in the sense, the reasons for why KM is important are connecting with the people at the ground level. So they cannot do it because they are not, their day-to-day work does not involve them. So how to make the people at the ground level see that the leaders walk the talk? Because the talk is mostly about connecting with these people and telling you are developing this product and it's important to do knowledge management on the product. But I as a leader, I am not doing this. How do I walk the talk?
See, amongst the other messages that they give, it's not just about specific initiators. They also talk about building a culture of learning from each other, sharing your knowledge and all, right? So that is where they can exhibit those traits. So I took the example of how in CGI one of the business leaders said that I want to talk about design thinking. So we actually rolled it out through an audio bridge to around 300 people, right? So those are like senior project managers and above in India. So that way the messaging happens, then someone else writes about it, that so and so talked about so and so and these were the key takeaways. So the word spreads through that. And the other is through the social media platforms which are there in every organization nowadays. Right. So are they really going and talking about something over there? Are they responding to queries? So you'll be surprised, but there are business heads who actually respond to queries in CGI, which could be from some employee lower down the chain who wants to know something about, can I get a Microsoft certification? So I've seen one of the business leaders actually writing that yes, we have coupons for Microsoft certification, they're going to expire in November, please get in touch with so and so. Right.
As at any point in time, this KM initiative, for example, we have the verticals of supply chain, CM, financials, DFSI, associate certifications. Our people moved into these certification levels because of their work and getting the certification through the KM initiatives.
No, come again.
Through the KM initiative.
Yeah, okay.
I am participating, I am working under you. I am working for a KM initiative, but actually my work is with the BFSI, Banking Financial Services Industry. So it has it in the loan retrieval process to be a small thing. Maybe, but it is go through the societies or charities as a TRICO or that is different from the regular setup. So once I participate in that and my product is implemented that way, then I am part of it and I report it to KM. Then through the KM, I go and I try to get a CSCP certification or something. Will it take me through?
Yeah, actually it's a good point. I don't know whether all of you got it or not. But can KM support some of these? I'll take again 2 live examples which happened in the last 6 months in my organization, in CGI. So we set up these communities.
Right. It could be as someone they were thinking about a matrix.
Okay.
And then the concrete certification process.
Yeah. So let me take one example. So there was this business analyst community that was set. So you have these business analysts in projects, 1 or 2 people in a say 30-member project, right? All floating around and sort of worried about, am I going down the technical stream, because they want to retain that business analysis skill. They're the functional experts basically. So it could be in BFSI or it could be in power or retail or whatever. So we set up this community and we found that some 200 people came and started participating in it. Now what we did was, we had one of these leaders be the executive sponsor of the community, right? So we had a buy-in and it was done through the KM Council that Mr. So and so will be the executive sponsor. We had a core team created for the community who will continue the momentum on the community. Then courtesy that, there was an international BA forum that was organized in Bengaluru. There were 20 people who actually went and participated in that. On their own, not even one would have been sponsored by the organization. Now, because of involving the leadership, there was a huge expense that was spent. Not only that, CGI became the gold partner for that conference.
How will this came initiative? Assume my workflow is there is something called the workflow that is integrated with most of the products. So if the through game initiatives, are we able to appreciate or able to derive a newer workflow like such structures?
Yeah. So again, it's about, in this particular case, again the community. Again, there is an architects community, for example, right? Now, in IT organizations, you have these Architect 101 programs, right, to get the budding architects oriented towards that. Now, there was something that was running. The moment the community was formed, again it had a senior leader, one of the business heads, as the executive sponsor. So there was a, what I'm talking about is something that I've seen in action. So the moment the community came together, there was a kickoff workshop, and one of the charters that they took was that we are not happy with whatever is happening on Architect 101. It's useless. It was governed by the training group. They had tied up with some external vendor. They said that whatever is taught there is absolutely useless. So then the next question was, the leader said, okay, if it is useless, you define what is useful. So they actually came up with that entire flow of what are the topics that should be covered, in what sequence, and what kind of mentoring the community would be providing. And remember, this is all outside of the day-to-day job. It's not that they were all billable 100% in whatever their projects were, but still they came up with a beautiful Architect 101. They've mentored something like 55 architects now. Right. I don't know whether I answer your question, but different kind of KM initiatives can lead to different kind of new knowledge development, involvement in lot more higher level things than what has traditionally been done and all that. And again, the leader plays a key role over there in enabling that.
So answering this question, so leadership actually provides the strategic vision and the guidance and the direction. That is number one. Apart from that, they inspire people to do certain things. In and around KM. Right? So after having been inspired, the ground level, the task force basically, they do certain things which makes them successful. So whether it's a delivery team or a project team, right? By adopting certain KM principles, tools, methodologies, whatever. So the moment there is 1 or 2 success stories by adopting KM, these PMs or delivery managers, they will talk about it. And then that disseminates across the organization. And that builds more momentum to the KM initiative. So leaders, in fact, in my opinion, they inspire. They will not do KM.
Exactly. So the walk the talk part.
Yeah. So
Was
they
not
will not do KM, but even they inspire people. And that 1% of the task force which is getting inspired will actually multiply, cascade, and develop your story further.
That's the definition of a leader.
Right. Thanks. So it cascades down multiple levels of leadership.
So you're basically telling that leaders mostly delegate and inspire. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, but
delegation
this still
to
lead
leadership
to,
is
for the leader to be credible, at least if not everything, whatever is relevant to their area of work, there they have to walk the talk. So you can't talk about going to your team and saying that, look, you are a subject matter expert, why don't you hold an expert for it? They themselves are experts in some area, right? So they should also come and talk to people. It's as simple as that.
I have an example actually.
Yeah.
There's a vice president in Oracle who writes a blog. That's walking the talk. He writes a blog,
yeah.
maybe he doesn't do it very regularly depending on how busy he is. But he talks about, say, a customer experience or a discussion or a presentation or a new technology. That's a good example.
So if you look at IBM, for example, the people who head the product lines, and these are massive product lines, right? A DB2 or a CICS or a mainframe or whatever. They are the ones who lead all the online activity that happens internally in IBM. So they are the ones who are every day there. So they actually walk the talk, right? They don't delegate it to others, right? Others can obviously value it. It's not that they stop others from doing it. But especially in product companies, like Oracle is a product company, it would happen, IBM would happen. I don't know about SAP, whether it's happening or not. In Microsoft, it happens. The most, the senior most architect would be the person who would be most visible internally. That person is also a leader, right? Vishal Sikka was a leader in SAP. I don't know whether you knew him at that time or not, but I believe he was very active in internal forums. He was always there, standing before people, writing on the internal platforms. He was there everywhere. He was leading by example. So when he says something, then people listen because they have seen him that he's also a doer. He's not just a preacher. Okay, coming to the downstream part of the cycle. Sorry, I picked up these words from the oil and gas industry. There was some domain session happening, and in oil and gas you use upstream, midstream, downstream for various, the entire value chain from exploration to sales. So I like those words and I thought why not, right? So again, where does the leadership come in when we talk of sustaining the KM initiatives within an organization? First and foremost, does it form a part of the enterprise dashboard? Some corner, somewhere. We know in an enterprise dashboard, typically you will have your top lines and bottom lines and customer satisfaction and maybe some quality index and employee satisfaction, those kind of things. Is KM there or not? That's a moot point. So if you have leadership which is completely engaged, they will find a way to bring it in. Second is culture versus metrics, striking a balance. So the gentleman there was asking questions about metrics from the SAP session. So again, it's very easy to go overboard on numbers at the expense of looking at the spirit of what we are trying to do here, and vice versa. So again, the leader has to recognize that aspect. Don't blindly run after some numbers, show a trend chart which is constantly going up and up and up. Never happens in real life, right? So they need to understand that part. And again, it has to come from them rather than we going and telling them. Very often we get into this trap of the ROI story. So obviously you need to show value, but will it be an ROI is the question, right? So they need to understand that. So this is where again it's a double whammy. When you talk to the leaders, they all understand that. Then you go into a review meeting and they ask precisely the same thing. Where's the ROI? So, but nevertheless, true leaders don't really, go after something which is like a revenue metric or a profitability metric kind of a thing for KM. So what we have done in CGI is, historically we have looked at, for example, as in Wipro. So there were your activity-based matrices and then you had your effectiveness matrices. Activity-based is how many hits on the portal, how many downloads, this, that, right? Those numbers, as the overall base goes up, they can continue to go up because you sort of create some artificial competition across different groups and people will go and click somewhere and that gets added to the activity metric. So it's good when you are at certain stages, but then it becomes counterproductive beyond a period of time if you start focusing too much on that. So In CGI, when I came in, I decided we'll not have activity-based metrics as a first guiding step. Is the organization ready for effectiveness metrics? No, it's not ready. So what we did was that we came up with something called a discovery tool to look at various dimensions of KM in a particular team. So that could be a functional team, that could be a project team, it could be a program team or a client team. Depends on how homogeneous the knowledge practices are. So on each of those dimensions, there was an interviewing process and a rating is given. Right, a rating from 1 to 10. And then action plans are drawn up based on, what are the opportunities for improvement. And again, the aim is not to go from a rating of 3 to a rating of 10. Can't happen. It's very impractical. But if you want to show that you're improving on ratings, then you can game the system again. But here it was about resetting the yardstick every time someone reached a certain level. So that was made clear to the leaders as well, that you won't go see an upward trend graph all the time. Right. So I think they understood that, at least in the organization, or maybe it's still sort of year 1 plus, so the level of patience is high. But we told them that we are going to reset that so that you're not hung up on matrices all the time. Right. Rather look at what is the effectiveness of them. Are the teams feeling a change or not? Those kind of things come into picture. Right. But it's the leader who has to show the way over there. At some point, a true leader would say, look, I don't want to see this. I want to see something different. Integration with other processes. So we all know that some of the initiatives that we start. You have a question?
No.
Okay. Okay. So we all know that, for example, you may want to see, it integrated into quality processes. So if you want to implement a better reuse strategy through KM, you know that quality has a reach to all the projects, so you integrate it over there. Likewise, if you want the G&Os to have some amount of weightage on KM, you go to the HR group and embed that over there. So again, it's the lead. If it comes from the leaders, the effectiveness of that integration is far higher versus the KM fraternity going and talking to them and getting it embedded. So there's a slight difference. From which route does it come from? Show the value delivered. So again, we can talk about it as the knowledge managers, that this is what we did, this is the impact that happened. The moment a leader talks about it, the impact is totally different. The credibility part is totally different. So some of the success stories you may actually want to feed into the leaders. But then the best is when the leaders hear from their own team that happened, and we got a lot of useful inputs because of blah blah blah, part of which is KM. So the value delivery part again should come from the leader's mouth in some ways. So maybe that's also part of talk the talk in a way. Right? Acknowledge successes visibly, we are all familiar with that. That incentivization, recognition, all these play a big role in again broad-basing KM and its adoption in the organization. So again, the rewards and recognition part of it. So for example, in CGI, because it's early days, so we have come up with the R&R framework where there is a concept of an annual tour. It's a very unique kind of a concept which has been sustained for 40 years of existence of the company, where everybody comes together and celebrates the success of the company. And there are hardly 2 or 3 awards that are given out, mostly it's cultural in nature. So this year, in fact it's happening on 6th of October, there's a award, it will be a rolling trophy which will be given out, which is the best performing group on KM. Right. So the idea behind that was to create visibility around KM. It's not about having one group start looking at the other group with suspicion. How did these guys come on top? Right. What kind of matrices were used? What kind of inputs were taken to arrive at that? But nevertheless, that's happening. So anyway, giving some visibility is always good in various forums, and giving visibility to the right people and the right kind of things for which you are recognizing. So any recognition that you do, if you are able to get it done through a leader, the impact will be far more. Both on the morale and motivation level of the person concerned, as well as for the KM function in general. Okay, so here's something interesting I came across in corporate dossier a few months back. I sort of jotted down this diagram. I thought today would be a good day to use it the first time. I don't think I understand it fully, but at least whatever my appreciation was from that short article, I talk about it. So we are talking of leadership. Essentially, they are influencers. And there's this gentleman called Paul Schwitzler who has written a book called Influencer, The Power to Change Anything. I must be honest, I haven't read this book. It is purely based on the Economic Times article I read. So what it says is that there are 6 influencers for any leader, right? There are 2 axes on which these influencers operate. One is on the motivational part, the other is on the actual ability or skill that one possesses. So at a personal level, the leader, and all of us are leaders in our own rights, so it's true for any leader. At a personal level, do I really enjoy it? If I want to carry out a change, and I said knowledge management is a change management exercise, do I enjoy it? So I need to really make sure that I like what I am doing in that sphere. Because if I don't like it and then I start talking about it, it will come through. The audience is very receptive about these things. So first and foremost, the leader has to enjoy it. They have to genuinely believe in that. Second is about, am I personally able? So do I have the necessary skills to do that? Right? At different levels of leadership, skill requirements will be different. As he rightly pointed out, at the topmost level, the skill requirement versus at a knowledge manager level, it will be totally different for the same topic, right? So they need to make sure they're equipped with all the right facts, figures, any support that is required from that. The second influencing level happens at a social level, which is through the peer group, right? So for the leader also, there's a peer group, there's a group of reportees that's also part of their